What up, what up, what up? Well, here we are again. We are at episode 11 of Brothers Y'all Good. I'm Mike. I'm here with my brother Jason, and we're excited because we're on week 2 of our tour through the D9. Last week, we had the brothers from Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and tonight we've got 2 dynamic brothers from Kappa Alpha Psi, the Phi Nu Pi. You know them. We're going to introduce them in just a second. Before I get to them, though, got to go to my man Jason. Jason, my brother, as we always start, how you doing? You good?
Man, I am good, Mike. Thank God. As I was telling you, today was a long day. I ain't even taking my ADD meds no more, and the days is getting longer. So I said, man, I may not start. It just seemed like 2 days in one. Normally my mind is real fast, and it's the end of the day. Now my mind is going slow. It feels like it's midnight in my head right now. I don't know what's going on. But I'm happy to be alive. Every day is a really, really good day. Super blessed. I'm really grateful to have these 2 men on tonight to talk about their journey and what mental health means to them. But before we get to them, I'm going to pass it right on back and say, Mike, brother, you good?
Man, personally, I'm good. I'm a little distressed, and only because of this. As I've talked before, my wife works back in Baton Rouge at Southern University Law Center. Those of you that follow the news and sports might have heard about the tragedy back there recently with the young wide receiver from LSU who took his life recently. For those that don't know the story, a little bit about him, he was being investigated and supposed to go in front of a grand jury regarding an auto accident that took someone's life. Before he got that opportunity, there was a lot of trial by media that took place. And according to at least his lawyer, all of that pressure, that negative energy was too much for him to deal with. And he just checked out. So prayers out to his family. My wife's got some students that are friends with that family personally. It's a pretty tight-knit community down there. So that stuff always hits hard now. And that's the last in a long line of suicides that have come to our attention since we've started in the last 11 episodes. So just my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody out there. And, you know, part of the reason why I wanted to create this space is to give people an opportunity to vent and share some stuff about what's going on with them. So I'm hoping that if you know somebody that might be going through something, you might reach out to them personally, or at least tune them into the podcast, let them hear brothers talk about our own personal struggles or challenges and the way we've tried to overcome them. So at least they've got something to hold on to briefly until more help can arrive. So, but yeah. Other than that, I'm good. Jason, go ahead and tell them what the podcast is about, and then let's get to these brothers.
Yes, sir. Brothers Y'all Good is more than just a podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real talk space where Black men can come through, open up, and just get honest about mental health. This show dives deep into the stuff that really matters to us: faith, fatherhood, fellowship, and all the ups and downs of navigating life as a Black man today, from dealing with stress, anxiety, and trauma to breaking through the stigma that's been holding us back. This podcast keeps it real with personal stories, as we're going to hear tonight, expert advice, as we may hear tonight, and practical tools to help you find peace and strength. This ain't just talk, though. It's about building each other up, sharing experiences, and creating a healthier, stronger community. So we're glad that y'all pulled up. Tune in and let's have the conversations that heal. Together, we're breaking the silence, overcoming barriers, and helping every brother to say, yeah, brother, I'm good. And I'm excited tonight because we have 2 incredible men. One I've known longer than the other, but I feel like the other one that I just met, I've known longer because he's a bit snarky, as they say in the streets of education. And But I found out another thing, that this seniority thing that y'all talking about in Greek life, I guess there's a pecking order right here. And I don't know, like I was told I was supposed to bow down to Dr. George Conley Jr. So I don't usually do that. I ain't gonna do it tonight, but just know in my head, I'm bowing down to you, sir. You want to take a second and just introduce yourself and let the folks know who you is.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. I
appreciate tell the whole story. Tell the whole story.
Don't start lying now.
But no, I just like to just first thank you for allowing me to be part of this great platform. As mentioned, Dr. George L. Conley Jr., originally from Mississippi. A little bit about myself. I'm a 30-year veteran of the Navy. I retired as Chief Warrant Officer 4. Joined the Navy at a young age of 17. Yeah, retired from there at 47. Along my way, obviously many deployments, many lonely nights away from home. So when you talk about mental health, it was something that wasn't talked about when I first joined. They're like, suck it up, and you got to deal with it and roll with it. Throughout my journey in the military, I started going to school. I'm a lifelong learner along the way. I have a doctorate in business administration, master's in education, a master of arts in management, a master of science in organizational management. I have an MBA. I have a master's in education, a bachelor's in liberal arts, associates in electrical mechanical technology, and an associate's in human resource management. So, and a long list of certificates and other things that I've picked up along the way. And no student debt, by the way, so I don't know debt, all that's paid for. While I'm doing that and still trying to decide whether or not to continue to go to school again and pick up something else, just learning. I'm a faculty member of several universities. Currently, right now, I teach at Oxnard College out of Oxnard, California, online, Southwestern College, Palos University, Westcliff University, University of the People. I teach face-to-face at Donovan State Prison, where after work, I go in through the Restorative Justice Program, which is one of the programs to help rehabilitate some of the men that's in there who made that mistake in life. And I also use some of the emotional intelligence tools to help them cope with how the stresses of school come along. During my full-time daytime job, I'm a branch head for the Department of Defense. I've been working for the Department of Defense for 10 years, and I am a manager, basically have contract management oversight. So again, I'm glad to be here. And last but not least, I am the, not last and not least, but a couple of things. I am the founder and CEO of a nonprofit organization called Conley Ace Foundation. I started it in 2016. I wanted to give back to some of the kids in Mississippi who didn't see someone that they could actually make it. So I like to go back and just let them know I'm from the streets, I'm from the dirt, where they came from, and this country boy was able to get out and make it, right? Through the belief in Christ and perseverance, I'm able to do what I do. And lastly, I am the president pole mark of the San Diego alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, where I proudly serve that chapter, so in our fraternity. So thanks for having me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us tonight. That's it. We'll talk to you guys later. My goodness, man. Good night. Man, I was like, man, you gonna go back to school and do what? You know what I'm saying? The only thing you got left is to become an electrician. My goodness. Golly.
I told y'all, see, y'all owe me an apology. Both of y'all.
Well, let me start now. Chip. I apologize. I'm sorry. You said it yesterday. I ignored it. Man. So
all the way back in the day, got all the degrees. You got more degrees than a thermometer.
Man, I don't even know what to
lifelong learner, man. Just what I mean. I was number 2 in my class from the bottom. So I came a long way.
Ooh, started from the bottom, now we're here. Hey, that's what's up, man. Well, that's beautiful, super impressive. Thank you, man. Really, really glad to have you. I'm really looking forward to our conversation tonight. I really appreciate that. And last but not least, definitely not least, he has more personality than D.L. Hughley. You know what I'm saying? Like none other than the great James Chip Hollis. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, my brother?
I would love to. First, I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be here. America definitely needs more of Black men reaching out for Black men. We do not do this enough. So I'm amazed. I'm impressed. I'm happy to be on this program with you guys. A little about me. So I was born in Detroit, Michigan. I moved to Mobile, Alabama when I was 3 years old. Grew up in Mobile. I graduated, went to college for Jackson State for 2 years. When I went, it was a funny story for you. When I went to college, you didn't have to go to class. You just had to pass. So I had straight A's. And then my last semester, they said, hey, you got to start going to class. And I said, you know what? I'm joining the Navy. Like, I ain't down for this class stuff. So I left Jackson State after 2 years. I joined the Navy. I did 20 years as an engineer on nuclear submarines on three different submarines. I retired. I owned a mortgage company in downtown San Diego for like 8 years. Then I went and worked for the government. I was in San Diego. We have 3 shipyards. And each of those shipyards had a senior civilian that was in charge of all the contracts those shipyards were working, and I was one of those guys.
Oh.
I did that to January of last year, but I had to retire because I needed to take 4 months to move my mom from Mobile, Alabama to Tallahassee because she was unhealthy and she was living alone, and that's a whole nother story. So I did that, and my educational background, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I often give lectures on emotional intelligence. I'm a self-help addict. Like I get it whenever I see a book that's going to make me better. I'm reading it. I'm listening to it. I'm driving around with it because I've always been that way. My mom was an educator, and I think that's why I got my drive from.
Wow.
And that's it. And I only have 2 degrees.
Nah. And so in your organization, in your fraternal organization, do you have a specific role or job or position in your fraternity? I
do. And Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, San Diego Alumni Chapter, I'm the MTA chairman, the Membership Training Academy. So I'm the person responsible when we bring members in that we do it right, we do it safely, and that we protect Kappa and protect the individual.
Oh, that's good stuff.
And I have a little membership group that work with me, and we all, we go through the process. And if they are admitted, then we go through the learning process, and then everything they have to do to become men of Kappa Alpha Psi.
That's awesome. Good stuff. And how long have you been a member of your fraternity?
I've been a member since spring of 22.
Okay, good stuff.
A quick story. When I was at Jackson State, I was on the yard and I was watching the Qs stomp and sweat. I was watching the Sigmas be cool, but I was really impressed with the Kappas. And what impressed me the most was that the way they dressed. Because I grew up, my mom raised 4 boys and 1 girl off $14,000 a year. So I remember having to wear my brother's clothes. So when I saw these brothers well dressed, I said, yeah, that's me.
Wow.
Even though I didn't do it then, it stayed in my heart.
Right.
And then I met Brother Conley about 12, 14 years ago, and the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. And how long have you been in it? Real quick, Mike, just how long have you been in the fraternity, Dr. Conley?
14 years. I joined the fraternity through the grad chapter while I was on active duty. Joined April 14, 2011. Solo.
Oh. Solo, you said?
Yeah.
Oh, so that means you went through by yourself?
By myself.
Ooh, I mean, I don't know what that means, but my guess is that's a big deal. You said that with your chest.
Yeah,
you said solo. Yeah.
Talk about you don't get to share that you just by yourself.
Oh man, good stuff.
Yeah. It's a great journey. Lifelong dream of mine being from Mississippi. I knew all about the divine, at that point, the grade 8 and all that, you know what I mean? So I knew about everything, a lot of family members involved, a lot of neighbors and stuff. So yeah, great honor and privilege to be a member of Kappa Alpha Psi.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to ask for each of you, and we can start with Dr. Conley first. What was the thing that was the trigger to make you join the grad chapter when you did, right?
Just the number one, joining the military, I didn't have a degree. I joined at 17.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about the grad chapter or anything. Didn't see anybody in my circle. You know what I mean? I didn't see anybody. And one day I was in LA in the early 2000s, and I heard some ladies talking about the grad chapter at one of the having dinner, and I was like, "Wow, I need to like what? What is he talking about? There's a grad chapter." And I went home, hurry up and try to Google it. And at that time, I didn't have a degree at that moment, but at that point, I was kind of starting my journey to getting my education. And when I did get it, I had to get the right timing. And it was just something that I always wanted to do. Once I heard about it, it was just something that I wanted to do. So, yeah, it didn't matter about the time because it's not a bucket list. It's a dream come true to be around, men of that stature, educated men, professional, achievers in every field of human endeavor. So yeah, it was great.
Wow. And Chip, the same for you.
For me, it's just a tad bit different. I grew up without a father figure. And I remember when I was in elementary school, my mom used to take all 4 boys to the football games on Saturday, but she had to drive us to each game. And all my friends had their dads there. And I'm like, and I told myself that I would always be a father because I never had a father. Okay. So I kind of did the same way Brother Conley did. I got my degree, and then I found out about the grad chapter. And you guys know this. As you move on in life, and you do the things that you plan to do, you have to look at. For me, it was like, well, I don't have a reason not to do it. You know what I mean? 'Cause I had done everything I wanted to do. And I've never been around a large group of high functioning men ever. Probably the largest group for me is Mardi Gras in Mobile, Alabama. Like you don't have a room full of doctors and lawyers that's all black that's not fighting. Like you just don't see that.
Right.
So I was drawn immediately because I'm always looking to grow, and you always achieve to the highest person in the room. So,
wow,
that's how I got interested.
Wow, it's interesting. What keeps coming to my mind is our our talk yesterday, and one of the things you mentioned, Chip, was, and I just wanted to, like, in terms of talking about the idea of mental health. When you talk about being in a room full of black men and they ain't fighting, and it's all successful, and it's something that you just never see. There's effects from not seeing that stuff. I mean, there's effects from that not being your reality, right? And especially you get older and you go, wow, I've never seen this before, and you're a full grown man, like well into your years. You're like, man, I ain't never seen this before, right? And it reminded me of what you were talking about yesterday, the question about what is mental health to you. And so, if you don't mind, if you could talk a little bit about that, what mental health means to you. And you had mentioned yesterday about how, when you grew up, there was a certain connotation that belonged to mental health. And so if you could just kind of kick this part of the discussion off with just that, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. I grew up in the South, deep in the South, in Mobile, Alabama. And you never heard the words mental health. When somebody was kind of different, you'd say they're retarded, or they can't get right, or they special, or they rode the yellow bus, all these things. But you never really talked about mental health because it was looked down upon, and especially in the black community, because as black men, we raised to be the pillar of strength, strong. It's like who do we cry to? You know what I mean? Like people cry on our shoulders, but who do we cry to? So I remember when I was underwater on submarines, when it's only 3 blacks on the whole submarine, like it's just you realize that you no longer compete with them because you guys are in the same. You try to help each other come up together. Like I wasn't competing against the black first class. I wanted Ron to come up with me because It was only so many of us, you know.
Mm.
So for me, my mental health journey has gone on my whole life. I think my mom spurred that on. But I will tell you a story. I was dating a girl, and the relationship was going good, but we'd have some bad times. So I was retired then. We decided to go get some mental health from the sub base, Point Loma. And we go in there, and the counselor told us after a couple of sessions, she said that we should not be together.
Wow.
And I told her, I said, well, that doesn't make sense to me, because there are way more good times than there are bad times. So at the time, I was just starting my undergrad, and I was doing business major. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna switch to psychology, because I realized that with business, the degree is no good until you get all the components of it.
Right.
But with psychology, every abnormal psychology, every kind of psychology, you learn as you go.
Right.
And after she said that, she kind of changed how I looked at it. So turns out that the girl I was dating, we're married now.
What?
I didn't take her advice, because counselors are not supposed to tell you what to do. They're supposed to help you get where you are.
Come on. Right. Come on, say that again. What?
You know what I mean? So she should not have said, you know, it's never a counselor's job to tell you what to do. Right. Counselor is to help you and your partner decide what you want to do together.
Right. Explain the choice.
Yeah. So that kind of started the ball rolling. Me looking and taking all these classes on mental health and doing all this stuff, because I just got hungry. You know, I was starving.
Yeah.
And it kind of led me to where I'm at now.
Wow. What about you, Dr. Conley? When you hear
when I think about it, you know, obviously I'm from Mississippi, deep in the South as well. So I know about the short bus and the yellow bus and all those different things that were said back then. But for me, in my journey in life, especially in the military, when I think about mental health and from spending 30 years in, is just how you deal with things on a daily basis, right? How we react to things we see, how we react to things we hear. That, you know, because the way we react, it sits in you, right? And so being that, like when I go and talk in the prison right now, because I understand that, and I remember giving a story. I remember when I joined the Navy I was on my ship in early 1986. And I was the only brother in my department until another brother from Detroit came. When he came, he was a little bit more militant because of that Detroit. I'm from the South, I'm country, didn't know all about this stuff. But from Detroit, though, he had a different edge and a different swag on how he felt about people. They had a different fight and struggle that I seen, right? I was from a place where everybody was going, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, to everybody that was of a different color. They were going, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And he was about like fight the power. So, I was trying to find my identity while in the military, being the only, Black in combat systems. And what happened was I was angry. I was just angry. For my first 10 years, I was angry. Just defiant, when leadership talked to me, I would look away. I would look off into space because I didn't want to give any eye contact. And it was at this now, knowing I know that was mental health, right? That was dealing with my emotions, my surroundings, knowing how to cope with your environment and what's happening. And a brother from Chicago, he was a senior enlisted, and he was like, he after he screamed at me and chewed me out, there was no like protocol on that. They can get you any kind of way. But he knew that something was wrong, right? And I didn't respond the right way. So one day he just asked me, just like you saying, you good. The only thing that brother did in 1994 was ask me, are you okay, good brother? And it wasn't like right now we're saying, are you good? But he asked me, was I okay? And what's wrong? He actually asked me what's wrong. And that was the first time in my 10-year career that anybody had ever asked me, like, what's wrong or anything. And he didn't do anything special other than just those words. And he said, look, man, if you want to make it here, let me show you what to do. Give me, start working, change your attitude. And that from that point on, that next day, I changed the way I came into work, and it actually changed my life. Now, when I start coming to work with a more positive attitude, taking advantage of the things that were around me, my life turned around in the military. I mean, just like, almost like night and day. You know what I mean? I went from an E5, then 4 years later, I was 3 years later, I was first class. The next cycle, I was a chief petty officer. Then the next cycle, I was a warrant. So everything happened in like a 5-year window, and it just changed my life. And now it's like PMA. I always say PMA. And I tell the prisoners this: positive mental attitude. You know, a dead battery don't jump a dead battery. So if you're around people who don't have the energy that you need, you're around the wrong group of people. And to kind of go back to what Chip was saying about being in the room and being around people with good spirit and headed in the right place, you can change your life. Like one guy said to me, if it's raining outside, even if you got a raincoat on, just getting wet a little bit. So if you're around people who with a positive attitude, good energy, it will change the way you think. It'll change the way you dress. It'll change the way you speak. It'll change your heart. And so that's kind of like where I'm at with mental health. Is more how we cope with the day, how we respond to the things around us is what's very important in today's society for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Let me follow up. Chip, you were talking earlier about your interest in emotional intelligence. And for those that don't understand what that means, talk a little bit about what emotional intelligence is and how you use it in your life to deal with mental health.
Gladly. Of course, I'll lead that off with a story. When I was a shipbuilding specialist working for the government, before I moved up, I would go to these meetings with the ship. It'd be like the contractor there, the Navy's there, the government's there. And I have seen fights literally break out at these ships. And I remember, like, I could walk in a room and you can feel. I'm sure you had been to like a fire meeting or something. You can just feel the tension in the room. So I did a bunch of research and because I wanted to understand why I react a certain way to certain people. We all come across that person who just rubs you the wrong way and you don't know why. It's just that one person. He makes maybe something he said, but it's 100% on you and 0% on him. So I had to realize what about that stuff that annoyed me. So I did I took a bunch of emotional intelligence courses. And what emotional intelligence is your understanding of your emotions and how they affect you and how they affect other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I could be in a meeting, and if I'm in a bad mood and cranky, I can elevate that whole meeting based on just my energy. So now when I'm having conversations with people above me and below me, I have to take a minute and a pause and assess what do I want to come out of this interaction, because that will determine how the interaction start. And I just try to be calm. You know, I never think emotionally. If there's something I don't know, I will come back with an answer. I'm not going to be forced to make an answer right there if I don't know an answer. If people are, and me and George talk about this all the time. I don't feel like we have enough tough conversations. I think that as men, we need to, like, I should be able to tell you whether I like you or dislike you. I should be able to tell you that in a respectful way that we can both communicate with without one of us hitting another or getting shot. But we don't have those conversations. We don't have conversations where we're uncomfortable, but we got to get through it because it's it's an important conversation. So I try to facilitate those conversations with all my workers. When I have two people don't disagree, I put them in a room, we sit down, we talk about it. And we talk openly about it, you know? That way, because at work, you don't always have to be friends, you just have to be respectful. Right. Like I don't drink with everybody I work with, and I don't work with everybody I drink with. You know what I mean? Right. But I do treat people as people. I don't overreact, I don't flip off, none of that stuff, because I control my emotions.
Yeah.
Man, that's really deep, and it's interesting, Dr. Conley. You something Chip said about emotional intelligence made me think about you and your scenario in the Navy, where that brother said, "Hey, man, like basically, like, what's going on?" And I'm curious, for you, it sounded like, well, something obviously happened. What was that something? What, I mean, because from what you said is like that day you was like, can't nobody tell me nothing. I just got a bad attitude, and whoever want to get it can get it, whatever. Then you meet this brother, and the next day you're like, man, and all of a sudden 5 years later, you the admiral in the Navy, right? So you're obviously an overachiever. But what happened? What happened in that meeting, and then what happened to you?
Right, but what happens is just what we're doing right now, right? You good, and just what Chip was saying, we don't do that enough, right? We walk by each other, and we don't ask each other, "Are you okay? Are you good?" And if we do that more often, and I've learned that as being a supervisor, is to read my people, you know what I mean, and my friends, right? You could tell when someone's not having a good day, and it's that moment when you go, you could either walk away and allow them, like, it's their business, I ain't getting in their business, or you be that brother and say, "You good?" Right? It's just a heat check. Are you good? You okay? And if they know you and they know it's sincerity, you know, if they can say it, you can, you know, this your friend. Hey, you know, you good. A lot of times at work, people walk by you and they don't even say good morning, right? And I'll be at work sometime like, dang, I've been working. I think I might have talked to Chip about this one day. I was at the job and just like walking by people, you speaking to them, they don't speak back. You know what I'm thinking? Like, you know, Chip tell me all the time, like, you can't control them. You know, you can't control people. And we always have these emotional intelligence and mental health conversations. But, you know, it just changed my life at that point. Just like we doing here. Just what you have in quote, brothers, you good. Y'all good. And just by seeing that and asking brothers that, good morning, are you good? I think that was the first time anybody ever did that to me. Like from a leadership role. And I was at that point, mentally, I was really just upset. I was angry. And I didn't have any emotional intelligence. I wasn't aware of my own emotions. I wasn't aware of how my emotions affected other people. You know what I mean? It could have been, if I look back, it could have affected some of my relationships with you know, some of my girlfriends at the time, just not knowing how to deal with my own, you know, own issues in life. One story, when I was in the military, we lost a guy at sea during the 9/11, and we lost him at sea. You know, and then when you saw how our leadership tried to cover it up just to make sure we wrote the right things, and they wanted to read all our documentation before we submitted it to the people doing the IQ, doing investigations and IGs and things, and we only looked for that guy for maybe less than 24 hours. And we was like, yo, we got to keep our mission going. And so we took off, like, and said, hey, somebody else going to look for him. Now, he was our guy, right? He's somebody that we talked to all the time. He fell overboard. We couldn't find him. And we just took off. And so that disturbed me at that point. You know, that was in 2011, right? And I was 2001. And I was like, wow, what if that was me? And I'm like, damn, y'all, we just go pill out. And we didn't even talk. We didn't bring his name up again. Like, it wasn't like he even existed. And that disturbed me even today, like, you know, that you could, you know, we're in this thing, in this fight for this country, and then we just left, never brought the person up, never celebrated him, never put a wreath, never did any burial at sea. We just took off and did our mission. And everybody who was with him had to put that in the back of their head and continue on. And so I had to do another, 14 years in with that, like, I'm not going outside at night. If somebody missing, check their skin because I bit them and scratched them or something. You know what I mean? Check my DNA because I got thrown overboard. So you're thinking of those type of things which affect your mental health, and it wasn't talked about at that time. It wasn't something that people cared about. So it's just one of the things when people reach out to you and ask you okay, it changed your life. It stops a lot of people from doing a lot of things. I had one other thing. I had a homeboy. He committed suicide and he hung himself. And I had been talking to him, but he had called me, and I didn't answer the phone, right? And I guess I could have been, the last person he was supposed to call. And the next day, his wife called me, and I was in the line getting some food, and I thought it was him because he called me from his number, and I was like, "Yo," I thought we were both Raider fans, so I thought he was like calling me about because the Raiders got beat, so I thought he was calling. We was going to tell some sad stories about it, but she called me and said, he had hung himself, and I was like, "What? Hung who?" She was like, "Yeah, he called you last night, right?" And I was like, "Nah, he didn't call me or whatever." She said, "Well, I went to go to the movies and he said he was gonna call you." And when she came back, it hung himself in the garage. So when she opened the garage up, he had hung himself. And so when she pulled up with his daughter and him, that's the sight they seen. So when you say, "Are you okay?" Like having these conversations and people asking you okay, and people being aware of their own mental health and not being ashamed to get that have that conversation with therapists, it changes your life. So, it's great to be having this conversation.
Wow.
I have a good example for you guys. You guys probably can relate to this. You ever been driving with somebody and you get cut off and the driver gets pissed off, start flipping off, beeping their horn and all that?
Yep.
Well, so before my mental my emotional intelligence renaissance, I was that guy. I was a guy who was beeping the horn, flipping them out. But now, whatever happens, I let them in because a couple of things I've learned. I've learned, number one, it's not my highway. I don't own the road, number one. Number two, the person didn't cut me off. The person cut off a black car. So I stopped making it about myself.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't have cut me off if he doesn't know me. He cut off a black car. You know what I mean? Right. And you don't know what they're going through. They could have been going to the emergency room because their wife's in the hospital or something, So now when I drive, I look at life differently now. It's not me against the world.
You got a fancy car, by the way. That's why you drive differently.
That's what?
You got a fancy car. That's why you drive differently.
Anyway. So now, when I'm
license plate 897. He tried to put all your business out there, Chip.
That's okay. He's from Mississippi. He's from Mississippi. Hey, you get what you get. You get what you get. But
no, Finn, were you finished with your?
Yeah, I mean, it was just an example of how your emotions can get away from you without you knowing why.
Yeah.
And those are things that now I do when I'm walking around and when I meet people. I try to imagine what they're going through before I assume they're any kind of person. And then that helps me make them more personal. And I don't have to, it just helps me to relate to it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, real talk though. Chip actually lived that life though. I mean, honestly, we talk about it, and what he's talking to you about, and what he's talking to everybody out there listening though, is how he really live and think though. You know what I mean? So it's always great for me to be able to talk to Chip because Chip, you know what I mean? He didn't found that that place in life where he has a grip of the emotional intelligence and stuff. Yeah, he be meditating and stuff. Yeah, he be doing it all.
Hey, yeah, I have to talk George off the wall. So he'll say, he'll say, "Hey, let me know if I'm wrong now." I said, "You're wrong." I mean, but
part of those
it's hard when you're passionate about life and passionate about people to not get emotional with your stuff.
Right.
Those are the times you need to take a breath. Well,
and talk a little bit about that, Chip, because you were saying earlier that when you go into these spaces, you go into these meetings, you're always trying to be calm, but that's only one emotional state. And I imagine that you're often feeling something other than that as you go in some of these places. So
yeah,
you manage to center yourself.
Yeah. So as a government rep, your job is to make sure the contractor is doing what you pay them to do.
Right.
What contractors often do is they bid low and then they try to grow the job to make money.
Of course.
And they don't want to take accountability of the schedule because the schedule is not their friend. They use the schedule to make money.
Right.
So when I go on these meetings and I know what they're trying to do, and I'm trying not to be pissed off because I know, you know, my job is to be a good steward of the government's money.
Right.
So I'm fighting all that along with the people that's in the room. You have all those personalities, you know, who clash. It's hard, but I you know, it's not impossible.
But how do you do that? How do you not allow that emotion of being upset because you've been doing this long enough that you see what they're doing? Like, I know what y'all doing. I know how you're trying to play the system, stretch out the schedule, because the longer it takes, the more money you make. I get all that.
Because I'm mad right now, and I ain't even the one doing it. And I'm mad just hearing you ask the question. Mike, I'm like, man, get the job done, fool.
Yeah, but you have to look at it from their point of view, though. They're here to make money. And if they can fix the ship in the meantime, they will. So the whole time,
they're here to make money. If they can fix the ship in the meantime, they will.
They will. But they're companies that have shareholders. They're here to make money.
Right.
Like any other company.
Oh,
so
Lord.
I just have to get them to see. What helps us is that as long as we have a good understanding of the process and the instructions that we gave them to do it, then I have that on my side.
Mm. Wow.
But it's not easy. It's hard. It's hard every day. Yeah. But the more you do it, it gets easier because now you can start playing, you can start having conversations and talking people down and saying, listen, take a break. You're making this about you. This is not about you. We try to do what's right for the Navy. We try to get those ships to go out to sea. And once you can talk somebody down like that, a lot of these contractors are retired Navy people. A lot of them, more than 50%. So sometimes you can calm them down and then talk to that part of them when they served. You know what I mean? Mm. And that helps.
Right, because they were all taught the message when they were in. When you get out, you can go here and you can actually really make some money because with your Navy experience in the private sector, that's where the real money is.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
So how do you, I guess I'm trying to get some practical stuff that maybe people listening could use. How do you get yourself centered before those meetings so that you can be the most effective in that way?
Yeah. So let me jump in too, Chip, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I get ready to, like, I go into the meeting, number one, I try to do my homework, be prepared, right? So you prepare it, mentally, you feel a little bit better about yourself. But what I normally do is, number one, I take, as Chip was saying, I take the me personally out of the picture, right? Because we're talking, it's not a George Conley conversation. It's about something else. Now I might have some play because this is my product, but I cannot take it personally. And it goes back to what Chip was saying about being able to have that tough conversation. So I had a conversation today, right? I went on board. One of my guys that had failed to meet his deadline. So me being a supervisor, I go out. Everybody's upset. We got internal customers and we have external customers. Everybody's upset with my guy. And I'm in charge of that guy. I'm on all the emails. So I knew that people were going to go out and they were going to say some things about how we're not doing our job, XYZ, we need to do this better. And I own that, right? I owned it. When it came up, I owned that. I own the mistakes that we made. And also, I also try to come up with a solution. And so with that being said, just being prepared, the more you prepare, the more you think you're kind of blind. Of course, you're going to get caught off guard. But if you prepare yourself, get grounded, take yourself out of the picture. Of course, you might have some jitters in your stomach. That's just natural. But if you just know, like, control your own emotions, don't allow anything they say to frustrate you at that moment, and just remain cool. Take everything for what it is. Sometimes it's like if the shoe fit, wear it. If it's something that it's not something about, they can talk all they want. It's not you. And then you can always talk about it, write it down, take notes, and then handle it better. So just being prepared mentally before you go in. You know if you're going in for conflict, right? So just like you're going for your end of the year performance interview, it could be opposite of what you think if you hadn't seen the numbers yet. And so you may be upset because you got a lower, performance score. But you got to remain cool. You can't show that angry person. I went on when I first got to a job, I asked so many questions. They told me I was intense. And I was like, and my supervisor said I was intense. I never met him before. The first thing he said when he met me, George, oh yeah, you're very intense. And I was thinking like, that's almost saying like I'm the angry black man, right? But I told him that we've never met. So I'm not sure where you get this from because I asked the why. I'm big on the why, right? And people don't like the why because we've been doing things the way you're new guy. So you just find other ways. The other ways, as I learned in recruiting, instead of saying why, you come out with something like, obviously you have a reason for saying that. Do you mind if I ask what it is? And it's still a why, but it keeps people from being defensive. They might not be aware of their emotional intelligence like you. So you're actually kind of controlling the room. You know what I mean? You're controlling yourself and keeping them down. You know what I mean? And lowering your tone. When they get up, you try to lower your tone. And allow them to understand you're not going to go there. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the way I stay grounded in those heated conversations. Me and Chip and we work in the same industry. So yeah, I totally understand. It get heated, but yeah.
And you are intense.
Chip, let me follow up on that real quick, Dr. Conley, because this is you now, right? This is you now. You done got all the, you're a little longer in your years. You done been through a lot more, whatever, right? You sort of understand your emotional intelligence. You know how to take a bad situation and make it right. But talk a little bit about what made your situation bad in the first place and how you showed up to the military the way that you did. What was that like for you? Like where did the anger and where did all that stuff come from for you?
I think, I guess the anger, being a single, from raising for a single mom, raising 3 kids, you kind of go in. At the time when I joined the military, it wasn't a lot of, blacks in there, right? So, you watching what's going on around you in the world in the 1980s, and I become to get angry. I'm watching people get advanced, people not advancing, men of color, not seeing anybody of color. There's officers in the military, nobody of leadership. If the brother was in leadership, he was afraid to talk to the young brothers because he didn't want them to know that he's down with us. And so you were just left on an island. So you get angry, right? And every day I'm like, if I ever make it, I'm never going to be like that. I used to say it all the time. If I ever make it, I'm never going to be like him. And I actually told one of the brothers who went through the Naval Academy, he was an officer there. I said, I'll never be like you. You know what I mean? Because he just never acknowledged us. And back when I joined, every time, if we were all 4 together, they'd be like, what y'all about to do? Go shoot some basketball? So it was just all those little comments that you hear. And even today, if we were all standing up, this happened just probably last year, the year before last, all standing up, talking, and people will come up and go, I wasn't invited to this meeting. Because the brothers, we up there just chopping it up for a minute, I wasn't invited. Or one of us would be, if we're outside and go, hey, we know we can't be out here together too long, right? And this is still going on right now in our heads because we all know what people think, right? And it affects how you operate. It affects whether you're in a good mood or not. Because you think if you're walking around with that in your head, you're not enjoying yourself. We see each other, we can't greet each other with happiness because we're thinking people are going to think something about it. And so that was caused my anger when I was young, coming up in the Navy in the 80s, the early 90s. It was the fight for unity, UNITY. It was about that. And, you know what I mean? I didn't feel that in the Navy because I didn't see it. So I was angry pretty much all the time about that. You know what I mean? Until the brother told me, hey, you got to be able to control it. And he was probably teaching me some emotional intelligence at that time. Didn't even have a definition on it, right? But he told me how to how to control how I feel and how I feel, how people receive who I was and who I am. And I think when people saw me early on in my career, they saw me as an angry black man, because I wasn't speaking, I was grunting, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, get out of my face, you know what I mean, or whatever. And when I was young, I was in the weight room, so I thought I was a little buffalo dude. So, we were just like, just rowdy, right? And then when I understand how it's unfortunate that in the military, you have to switch, you know what I mean? We got to switch who I am. I can't be who I really am. So when I get here, I have to be able to, like, I got to fit in because, if I'm not part of if they don't allow me in, then I can't get the rank number one. I can't get the ranking that I need. So all those things, throughout my life made me angry, mainly just because I didn't see people of color, you know what I mean? I didn't see any leadership and I'm being, left out of things, not feeling comfortable. I'm watching movies in the birthing when Whoopi Goldberg was like at her high point in her career, listening to the guys go, "Oh, look at nappy headed, whatever," and I'm in the watching this movie with everybody else, and I'm the only brother. You know what I mean? And it's like I couldn't say anything. I felt some type of way, but I couldn't say anything. You know what I mean? And you're in that environment, and so over the years, I had all this built up anger, and I didn't even know it until that brother actually. I was angry for 10 years until that brother just said it. Are you okay? And I was like, it just kind of like it lit the air out. I was able to talk about it to someone, I think, that changed the way I thought. He didn't do anything. It just allowed me to voice my frustration.
So. Wow. That's dope. Wow.
So talk a little bit more about that journey from that angry guy to the guy that we see now, because what some people fear, honestly, is, well, obviously I watched Dr. Conley on here, and obviously he changed. He not who he forgot who he was. He changed to fit in with the man. And both him and Chip were talking about, you got to be this calm guy now. You can't be who you are because you got to please the man. And what a lot of people associate that with is selling out, man. That's that Tom stuff. That's that coonery stuff. That's whatever you got to do. Somebody found you and saw that you were angry, and then you stopped being angry. Someone talked to Chip, and he learned about emotional intelligence, and now he goes into all the meetings calm. And so
I'm still angry though.
But that's what I'm saying. So talk to the audience a little bit about how you walk that line between the person that you still are inside and the way you express yourself out to the world.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned it. At that time when I started changing the way I approach myself at work, one of my young guys that worked for me, and that came up, right? They start calling me the golden child and all this other stuff because I start carrying myself differently, right?
Right.
And I started getting recognition because that change flowed everywhere. And I learned how to self-promote myself. And what happened was one of the young brothers from he told me, he's like, they used to call me, they call me GC or whatever. And so they was like, GC, man, you're not selling out, you cashing in, my brother, you cashing in. And so it was like one of the little things. That's what he said. We didn't think about it because we were like, we're cashing in, right? We wanted, people were picking us because we were talented, right? And no one wants to speak to anyone angry, right? It doesn't matter if I'm talking to you rude, disrespectful. Amongst each other, we wouldn't want to even talk to each other. So it's not so much. There's a place for everything. That's how I kind of see it, right? At business, there's a place for business. If you're in a business meeting, you dress accordingly. And there's a chance when you go into the gym, you dress accordingly. So that's kind of how I approach it in life. Like there's a time and place for everything. So when I'm in a work setting, pays my bills, it's not so much that I'm selling out, but I'm in the place where I'm being professional. I'm trying to handle my business. This is where I make my money. When I'm out with the fellas, we're talking, we're just having a good time. So yeah, everybody has to do it because I can't act like I'm acting with my fellas at work and how, and talking on the phone the same way. So there's just a place and time for everything. There's a place to be professional, and you have to know that, right? And I think what happens in today's society, most of the time, people think that you can be the same way. Oh, this is how I am. But, not even, no one wants, if you're rude to people, we don't want that same environment and energy when we're trying to come up with a solution, right? So, and you got to think too, I grew up, I'm a 60 baby, so I grew up at a different time, right? And so as I talk to my kids, they have a different mentality because social media and a lot of things on social media that they're exposed to, there's also creating, emotional damage because they're seeing a lot of things that's not right. We read about them when I was growing up, or you didn't even hear about it. You know what I mean? You just knew what was in your face. And so in today's society, everybody's able to see everything, the news, prey on the negativity of the world. So, and not a lot of positivity. I was listening to a podcast, and a gentleman was saying, why can't we listen to 60 days of nothing but good stuff and see how it changed the way you move and how you act and how your energy and how you feel inside? If you just listen to 60 days of good stuff. What happened to me, I know how negative energy hurts you because I used to watch on social media, I was watching like the fights, right? Like neighborhood fights, right? Ghetto fights or whatever you want to call it. So I was watching, it was fun to watch, right? People fighting out there, I'm just watching it. But I couldn't sleep good. I did not know that it was affecting how I sleep. When I watch that type of energy, when I go to bed, that transfers into my nightlife. And then I'm having these weird dreams, body reactions because, of what you put into your body mentally, stimulating your mind is what makes you burn inside. So, and it's important to talk about positive things. If you wake up, I was telling a guy who having a bad time, I said, look, man, you need to find something positive to read every morning when you wake up. You got to start your day with some good stuff, some good energy, some positive mental attitude stuff to get your day going. You can't, and you can't just stay in that same place. You got to find the people, connect to the people with the right energy so you can get out of that funk. Now, it ain't going to happen overnight, but you got to find that right energy, the right person to talk to, the therapist, the coach, your friend who got the energy that you want to be like. You know what I mean? So that's what changed my life, man. I mean, it's a journey. It's easy to sit up and talk about it because I understand how to play the game in the rooms, but it was a journey to get there, But it was the most important part was that first step.
That's a good segue too, because I was thinking about you, Chip, as Dr. Conley was talking. I was, he was saying or when the question was asked, like, you selling out, that's the reason why you're doing it. And one of the other things people say is, oh, you just got older, or that's always just been you. You ain't never really wanted to fight, so, or whatever the excuse is. I'm curious for you, Chip, like what was because I was impressed. I did not think your story that you told in the beginning was going to end with you being married. All right, I thought you was going to be like, yeah, and I never married her. I don't know what happened, but you're like, nah, she my wife. You decided to do something different and go against the odds, but typically people stop growing in that moment. What was it about that time or that time in your life or whatever that caused you to capitalize and become curious? And then how did that take you from where you used to be to where you are now? Because you've
a couple of things. The biggest thing is that it did not make sense to me that if we got along 95% of the time and did not get along 5% of the time, I should get a divorce. That just doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like if I hit home runs 95% of the time and I strike out 5% of the time, am I going to go play basketball? Well, it just didn't make sense to me.
Right.
So I decided I'm just going to figure it out and find out what causes the 5% and what causes 95%. So what we found out was is that now whenever we have a conversation, she say, like, for example, she says, can I tell you something? I always ask her, you want me to listen or you want my opinion? And I asked her before because it's two different actions for me. If she want me to listen, I can just listen. But if you want my opinion, I have to listen with intent. So now whenever she tells me things, I always make sure I ask her what she wants from me. in the beginning, and that helps us now because we don't fight about that stuff anymore because I know exactly what she's asking. You know, or sometimes she may say both. I want you to listen and give me your opinion. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've been on this. I feel like I've been on this journey my whole life. I remember in high school just thinking that Mobile, Alabama was not big enough. Like it just can't be all to life. I was in the ninth grade. I'm like, this can't be it. Like this can't be where I'm going to spend the rest of my life.
Right.
And so the day after I got out of high school, I was gone. I've never been back. I've never lived there again.
Wow.
Because it doesn't, it just doesn't fit. Didn't fit me the whole time. I don't know why. I think in the mental health business, we got this thing called nature or nurture. Nature meaning you were genetically designed to be that way. For example, if there's 5 siblings, all of them are different. Now, are they different because of nurture, or are they different because of nature? And that's the struggle I have when I'm talking about my family, just finding out, are we all different because of this or because of that? So I spent my whole life in search of something. And along the way, I find little bits of it along the way. And I'm still finding stuff. And I love it because it pushes me to grow. And when I said George was intense, I wanted to explain that. So to me, intense is not a negative thing.
Right.
To me, intense is somebody else's perception of you. George is he holds people accountable. And people don't like that, especially the ones that don't want to be held accountable. So he looks like he's intense, like, get out of my face. But he's just trying to get you to do what he's already paying you to do. To me, that's not intensity. But people call it what scares them. You know what I mean? Because even when him and I have tough conversations, like I'm not threatened. It's a conversation between friends. And I know there's nothing that we're going to say that's going to end that friendship that day.
Right.
So we're able to talk about anything. I know he's not going to judge me. If he doesn't agree, I know he's going to tell me he doesn't agree and tell me why. So it's non-threatening.
Yeah.
I love those conversations because I ain't got nothing to lose and everything in the game.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah, it's a safe place, right? So
Yeah.
it's a safe place.
Yeah, I just got told that I look orange. So emotional intelligence tells me.
I mean, I have this page. You guys go to YouTube and listen to all the quotes from like Denzel, all that stuff he has on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
I don't get my emotional advice from actors. So no, I don't listen to nothing Denzel says.
But it's not emotional advice. They're just sayings. Nice try.
I don't listen to it unless he talking about hurting somebody or something in the movie. I don't want to hear what he got to say.
No, so I give you an example. One of them says, here's what poor white people think about black people. They say, I might be poor, but at least I'm not black. And that's the stuff you think about. It's just a thought, right? Blaming other people is another way of giving away your power. Like if you're not accountable for the things that happen to you, you blame somebody else, you're never going to be powerful.
Absolutely.
The only competition you have today is with the person you were yesterday.
Amen.
And so I read these all the time because every time I read them, they mean something differently because I'm at a different place when I read it,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I tell my daughters all the time, I say, listen, what somebody thinks about you is none of your business.
It's interesting to me when you say the things that you said and with the confidence that you said. What I'm wondering is for somebody that's listening and like they're hearing these things and people know these things, and a lot of the stuff we're talking about now, they are deep when you practice them, right? but they don't seem deep when you're just, at least to me, they don't seem deep when you're just hearing them. Right? I mean, it sounds good. What somebody thinks about me is none of my business. I mean, but if I learn to practice that, there's some depth in something like that. There's freedom in those things. And so I guess what I wanted to kind of transfer to as we kind of move towards the end is like, what is the benefit? What is the benefit, or what has been the benefit for both of you in terms of the peace that you've received from beginning to practice these things? Because I think that there's a hesitancy to practice some of these things because it doesn't seem like it's going to bear fruit. If I just respond to somebody or react to them right now, I get an immediate response, but it causes a bunch of other problems. So what was it that convinced each of you to begin to practice these things and make a commitment? So what was it that made you make the commitment, and what keeps you committed to these ideas? Because you're both successful, you both come from mediocre means, I'm assuming, and you're both doing really well right now. So what prompted you to change? Not prompted you to change, but prompted you to start doing these particular things, and what keeps you doing them?
Right. Well, let me just say, one of the things that a brother told me back in the day is that knowing your darkness is the best method of dealing with the darkness of others. You know what I mean? So when you start learning about yourself and knowing your triggers and the things that change the way you think and feel, that's the best method on how to deal with others, right? And it's basically you're taking away the other person's ability to control you. You know what I mean? You know your darknesses. You know what I mean? And you know how to deal with their whatever attitude they bring to you. You know how to deal with it, right? Because a lot of times, I work in the prison system in the night teaching, and I know when those guys have a bad day and they come at me, I know it's not about me. I just take me out of the picture because I don't really, unless I walk up and slap you or say something crazy, there's nothing that I've done to you to create any type of friction, right? So I take me out of it, and I always go, it's them, right? And so Chip is always good for that when we're talking. And sometimes you do get lost in that because I go to work. We're human, so we sidetrack. That's why I say you don't deal with people. Dead battery don't jump a dead battery. So I call Chip, right? Chip that live battery. So I run it by him. He gonna put me back on track, right? And so you have to have that person. It's a continual journey, right? So it's not a one-time fix and that you know everything, because we're human. We're dealing with human emotions. We see things, we react, but you just have to have that person, and you have to always have that center place. You know, have that moment. One thing that I do also, I go to the gym every day, right? You go those moments of solitude. You know, when I'm driving in the car, I'm just not driving. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to motivational things. I go to the gym. You know, your physical health helps you on how the way you think. If you feel good, you're gonna think good. It just changed. You know, when you leave the gym, you don't leave the gym angry, man. You're like, yeah. You know, the blood is flowing right. You feel good about yourself, and so it's a continuous journey. You know what I mean? For me, you know, it's every day you just wake up thankful for the moment to do better, to be better. I always tell the guys in the prison that success will never lower its standards for you. You have to raise your standards to achieve it. So whatever you're trying to do, no one's going to give it to you. You know what I mean? If the bar is here, you have to raise it. You have to raise your standards to achieve it. So when you just change the way you think in life, and it's a journey, right? You got to continue to do it every day of your life. You know, and not that you don't have bad days, but you just have to have a way. As Chip said, we don't, as black men, we don't have too many black men to be run to and talk to. But we don't have these type of conversations. Now we are having them, but back in the days you didn't. So you just had to suck it up, and you went through all type of struggle, families, illnesses. Now we share those things. Back in the days, I never heard them before. Now brothers be like, oh, my mom is sick. We pray for each other, right? We're praying for each other. We sharing if we having surgeries, we having marital girlfriend problems, or whatever's going on in life, we sharing them, and we having a conversation. so that helps brothers and help me and other brothers, to be better and to do better. So it's a continual struggle, a continual journey to just be better and do the best person, be the best person you are. So that's what's up for me.
What about you, Tim?
I think it's kind of, you guys are gonna think this is kind of weird though, but
I'm gonna think it's weird because you saying it already.
Well, not you. Well, I ain't counting your vote. I know what you already gonna say.
Well, since you're gonna tell me how I'm gonna think, weirdo. Yeah. I'm actually really interested in what you're gonna say. Actually,
you ever heard of a guy named Michael Donald? In Mobile, Alabama, in March of 1981, a black man was kidnapped and killed by the Ku Klux Klan. His name was Michael Donald. He and I were classmates in 1979. But when he got murdered, I was at Jackson State.
Oh, wow. 79 in Jackson State. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, he got 81. He got murdered. We were in class at 79 together in high school.
Oh,
but in 81, I was at Jackson State, and he was finishing his senior year at Murphy. But he and I used to always talk about how we can do better and leave Mobile. How we can, because Mobile it led the country in crime for years and years and years. And I kind of just maneuvered my way. I tried to grow and maneuver my way along the way. And then once I had kids, I really stopped to focus. I told my daughters, I said, I'm the only man you're ever going to meet in your life who doesn't want anything from you. I want you to be successful. You're never going to meet another man that's not going to want something. So if you don't trust me, you're on your own. And I removed and I met Brother Conley, and that was a pivotal part. So it's easy. This stuff is easy for me now because after I go to the gym, I go for a walk for 2 miles and I put on the motivational stuff and I listen to it. I love it because you can hear it one way on Monday and then something can happen to you on Wednesday. On Thursday, when you hear it, it's a whole different message, but it's the same sentence. And you never lose it after that because it hits you after that event. So all these things that I read to you guys that I say them to myself all the time. And then sometimes something happens, I go look at it and I say, that's what that is. And it just sends you, it permanently mounts it to my personality. So I want to eventually do what you guys are doing. I like the fact that you guys I think we need more and more of these conversations, and we need to reach out to the brothers that are 21 years old and 22 and, adults, but because I'm sure a lot of them don't have role models just like I did.
Right.
But, I'm grateful for what you guys do. It's giving me ideas on my next part, and I appreciate it. And good.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we always talk about is this idea is an idea. And we just really believe it belongs to God. It just so happens that we're the ones that kind of brought it to fruition, but there's a lot of things that are coming as a result of this. And one of the things that we always say is if there's any way that we could be of assistance and work together, one of the things that there's another group that meets on Tuesday at the Malcolm X Library, the first Tuesday of every month at Malcolm X Library at 6 p.m. And it's just a group of black men. They get in a circle and they talk about mental health. They just talk about what's going on, come up with a topic, people share. It's just a very, always I say there's no such thing as a safe space. You can't determine what somebody's going to do or what you say, but we can create courageous spaces where you can be courageous. And so I believe it's a courageous space. And so we purposely don't do our podcast so that we can support those brothers or whatever. You know what I mean? We're not trying to use any influence to do anything. We want to see more of this. And so if there's anything that we can do to walk alongside whatever idea you have, to elevate the idea that you have, we certainly want to work together. And that goes for anybody that would be listening to this. I feel like we need to stop competing for people and start competing against the negative influences that we see out here, against the things that are causing people to not be their best selves. That's what we should be competing against. And whatever we can create that can combat that is more powerful than whatever little idea that I have that I think is better than what everybody else is doing. That's crazy. There are enough of us in San Diego, though there's not a lot, but I bet you a majority of the brothers in San Diego probably don't have comfortable spaces where they can just say, man, look, I just want to cry. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I ain't gonna never tell nobody that, but the truth is I don't want to be here no more. We're seeing suicides of Black people rising, and it just never happened before. So something has happened to affect the culture the way that it has, and we can't afford to work against each other to try to help to combat that. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate both of you for being here. Mike, I'll turn it over to you, man, so you can kind of take us home.
Yeah, and I appreciate the conversations that we had tonight. I appreciate the two of you, Chip and Dr. Conley, for being so willing to be so transparent about your lives, right? What we ask when we invite people to be on the podcast is to be what you've displayed tonight, courageous enough to share, this is some of the stuff that I've gone through in my life, right? What I recognize is that part of what you share with us tonight is something probably very few people that know you know about you, because you were able to talk tonight in a very real way. And so we appreciate that, because again, my hope for all of this, what God is telling me that this is a part of, and it's just a part of a bigger plan that he has, is creating models of conversation so that four brothers that might be watching this can talk amongst themselves. They don't have to talk to you or I or Jason or anybody else. They can get out on their own and do stuff. And I appreciate what you said about trying to get the young men as well. And we've had some young men or younger men that have been on as guests, and we're going to have more in the future, because this conversation is real. And when I hear you, Dr. Conley, talk about, I was in a place for 11 years until a brother came up to me and said, yo, what's really going on with you? And you could let that out. Well, if we can catch folks before they get that far along, then you can imagine what, if you had had that success even 5 years earlier, what that might have meant for your career. I don't know that you need any more degrees than you have now. That'd be kind of silly, but right. I ran out of fingers trying to keep track of all the degrees.
I need my hands and Chip's hands to count all the degrees you got.
And the toes.
And, right. So we appreciate what you do. And the other thing I wanted to share is, a lot of people, when they see Greek men out and there's more than one organization represented, believe that we are like gang members can sometimes be, because we've got some of the outward manifestations, right? We're together, we're cliquish, we got our colors on, we got some secret stuff that we do, and we look over at the side. But what I wanted people to know from these conversations this month is, we're all family. The D9 is all family. All the sorors are our sisters. All the frat are our brothers, or at least our cousins, right? We're all in the same group. And so, yeah, I didn't pledge your organization. You didn't pledge my organization, but we've got a bond that's unshakable, because we joined our organizations for the same reason, that we want to better ourselves, that we want to be around positive brothers. We wanted to create a sense of brotherhood and community, and we want to share that with the world as models for the young men growing up, that they can look to us and see, oh, I see them. And I like what you said at the beginning. Part of what Kappas are known for is, if there's somebody that's going to be out and they're going to be clean, it's going to be the men in that crimson and cream when they walk in. That's how they roll. And so you don't see somebody come in and raggedy, because we need to present that image as well, right? The Qs aren't going to get that reputation, but they have a different one because there's a different heart to them. The same with the Sigmas, same with the Alphas. So I appreciate what both of you are doing. I appreciate the work that you're doing currently, right? You both have had enough career work that you can be sitting back going, you know what? Checks can still come in, and I can take care of family, and everything's good. And each of you have decided that you want to continue to do good work in the community. So I just commend you for that. I'm going to turn it back over to Jason.
Yeah, same for me. Any last words that you gentlemen want to leave? I'll get the senior the poll mark. Is that what you said? I asked the poll mark first. Any closing comments that you want to make to somebody that may be listening that may have resonated with your story?
Yeah, just if you're struggling with something, find somebody to talk to. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid. Don't keep that to yourself. Find somebody, reach out to somebody that you can really trust and talk to, and get that off your chest. So yeah, it really helps you a lot. When you're dealing with things by yourself, you feel lonely. But yeah, find someone to talk to that you can lean on and support you, friend. So yeah,
that's good. What about you, Chip? Any final words?
If you guys come across people that want to have these conversations, feel free to give my email address. Like I'm open.
Same here.
Reach out. I love to sit down and talk to people like this because I really enjoy. I'm fascinated by people and why people do the things they do.
Yeah.
So if you find somebody who you can send them my information, and I reach out to them. Like I'd like to come back not as a Kappa person necessarily, but just as a regular person and talk. Because this was fun, and it was challenging for me because I'm an introvert, and.
Yeah, I was gonna say you might have told your first lie today, Chip. I ain't calling you a liar, but I'm just saying, man,
this stuff was hard because
when you get nervous, I guess.
It's hard because I don't like to share things about myself to people I don't know.
No, I hear you on that part, right?
Yeah.
That
Mike, don't buy into it, Mike, please.
But I know what it's like to say. I'm willing to share with people that I know, and I can be outgoing with those folks. Yeah. But to strangers, I get that. Jason knows that from the years that he's known me and seen my transformation from this guy that was kind of quiet and he's that stuffy judge that just kind of walk around and watch people and it's like, oh, and I see a different dude out there now. And we've talked about that before, so I can appreciate that. And that's why I wanted to thank you, because we're asking people when we invite them on the show, and not everybody that wants to be on the show has been invited on yet, because we're looking for people that are willing to do the hard work, which is to be transparent, open, humble, vulnerable about their personal life. So that's why you heard me asking questions. No, but tell me how you did this.
Yeah.
I want there to be some life lessons in all this, not just some book lessons in all this for folks. So thank you. Jason, back to you.
Yeah. Well, I again, just thank you both. Thank you, brothers. One of the things we do at the end of all of our podcasts, one of the promises that Mike made to God with this idea is that we would always give honor to God for the platform. We don't know what this is going to do. This is a complete walk of faith. We don't know what is going to happen. We just showed up and just said, much like the scripture says, here I am, Lord, use me. And that's what we've done. And so just to continue to honor God and what he's done, we always pray at the end. And so I always tell people, for me, my faith tradition, I'm a Christian. So when I pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so if a person feels so led to pray with us, then that's cool too. If not, that's okay. But I'd love to pray just to close us in prayer, if you don't mind. So God, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this time that we've had tonight. I'm just really grateful for Dr. Conley and for Chip. Thank you for their transparency. Very, very grateful for the way that they know themselves, the way they've gotten to know themselves. Very relatable. Two men that come from the South with a lot of trauma just from being in the South. There's some things that we could have sat on for a little while about the traumas, one with a friend that was hung. And we just sort of talk right past those things, right? They're just things that happen. Another one saw somebody that fell off the side of a ship, and we just talk right past it. And those things are typical. The goal of our thing is to show people the normalcy about talking. And I just pray that people that have issues like this would find people that wouldn't just listen and talk past the things, but that would actually spend the time. Thank you for the ability to model what healthy conversation looks like. And so I just pray that you continue to bless these two men, bless their organization, the ideas that they have, their jobs, their businesses, the relationships that they have, their eagerness and willingness to want to talk to other men about their issues, continue to build us together, to be able to work together to create platforms that are complex enough to be able to deal with the issues that we all see, brothers, in San Diego. So we're just grateful for everyone that's listening, that's tuned in, that will tune in and listen. We're grateful for the platform. And we do this for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be here next week. Same time, same channel. Next week, we have the men of the Omega Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And we're looking forward to the conversation. Thank you so much to Brother George Conley Jr. and Brother James Chip Hollis from the Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, as they call the Noops. Very, very grateful.
With the Noops now.
And we'll see the rest of y'all next week. Thank you very much for tuning in.
All right.